everybody, it's Safi and Marco Dish on the Movies. And guess what? We're reviewing a Halloween movie today. And it's called Something Wicked This Way Comes. Frankly, I almost really didn't want to review it because it's not so good. In fact, watching it has led me into reading the book in order to gain a better understanding of the who's, what's, and whys of the story, because it was so light, and I'm just going to say this on the top, that it's just so light, there's just not much to it. So, anyway, it is a Disney movie that debuted in 1983. It's based on a book by Ray Bradbury, which the book is the same. This is the same title as the movie, and if you've ever heard of him, I hope he's a very famous science fiction writer.
He's not very good, is he?
Yes, he's very good, but he
not with this story though.
He wrote this in 1962. And apparently he did help write the screenplay, I guess, for the movie.
Oh, that figures.
So, like I said, it's a very light movie that is about a small town in Illinois where there are 5 main characters. And there are 2 boys, Jim Nightshade, who's played by Sean Carson, and Will Holloway, who is actor Vidal Peterson.
So is that supposed to be some sort of symbolism? His name being Nightshade?
I don't know yet. Apparently not yet. Anyway, there's also Mr. Dark, the villain, played by Jonathan Pryce.
Mr. Dark.
And his associate actress in the movie, Pam Grier, who plays the Dust Witch. And then the most famous actor in the movie, who's won an Academy, Emmy, and a Tony Award, and actually probably multiple awards in at least 2 of the categories. Will's father, who's played by the famous, and he's in the movie, his name is Charles Holloway. He's played by the famous cigar-smoking, white-haired Jason Robards, who I remember well, in one of his parts anyway, as the editor of the Washington Post and All the President's Men. Okay, well, the story is Mr. Dark sweeps into town wearing a long coat and top hat, guided by his cane, leading a carnival. They came in by train, which kind of, appeared and disappeared. This is an evil carnival that preys on people who want something so desperately that Mr. Dark is able to grant it, doing something, I won't say what. And it's like a desperate wish, but the thing is, when you get the wish, you pay a price. You could be imprisoned as a statue, or anything else he can inflict to cause permanent misery. Which they didn't really show everything. It was very light, like I said.
It's PG, so...
Well, Will and Jim, they're best friends, which is really nice. Curious, sometimes mischievous boys who can get into trouble in or out of school. They check out the carnival, of course, because they're excited. This is a small town. A carnival coming into town is a big deal. And in the book, it's the wrong time of year for them to have the carnival. So they don't really say that in the movie. So that's another thing that's weird and fun, because they get food and rides and all that. Well,
did they check out the dancers in the book?
Not yet. Not that I'm aware of.
Oh.
Well, they figure out it's problematic, and I won't say why. And they tell Will's dad, Mr. Holloway, about it. Apparently, Jim Nightshade's dad left a long time ago, so Will's dad is kind of the dad for both of them in a way. In the end, it's Mr. Dark versus the boys, Mr. Dark and the evil Dust Witch versus the boys and the dad. Their lives are in danger, except Mr. Dark wants Jim to become his right-hand man. Who will win out? Well, it's a Disney movie, so I'm sure you'll be able to guess the answer. Okay, Marco, why don't you say something? You want to say something about the Dust Witch? Who I mentioned, Pam Grier, is playing the Dust Witch.
This movie sucked.
Don't yell.
It sucked. Safi, who the hell came up with watching this movie? I did. And you did. So we share the 50% blame for this awful, terrible, trash movie. It's so funny, too, because I have so many things to talk about, too. Firstly, this film, it feels like a movie that came out in the 1950s, in my opinion. It feels like one of those shitty movies that Don Knotts made. You know when Don Knotts quit Andy Griffith, and then he made all those shitty movies, like the one where he goes to space, and then the one where he's in the Wild West, and like this feels like one of those movies. And I hate all of those movies except for The Ghost of Mr. Chicken. That's the only good one.
But funny.
But that one's basically like Andy Griffith.
Maybe we should have watched that.
Oh, we should have. But this movie, God, it was so terrible. And it's funny though because we reviewed Lost Boys, and spoiler alert, I loved Lost Boys. It's not the fact that I didn't like it, but as a fair and honest critic, I have to critique. If I have critiques, and obviously every film has critiques. There's no such thing, really, almost, as a perfect film. There are some exceptions like Heathers and movies like that. Those are perfect films. That's a perfect film. But with The Lost Boys, my main critiques was that the movie was too short, and so like they could have had a lot more depth to the story, which would have made me connect a lot more. And then also, it was too kiddish, and it was basically like a PG film. Well, this movie is even more kiddish, and it's even shorter. Like this movie is only an hour and 19 minutes long. And we watched it on YouTube. It says it's an hour and 35 minutes long, but I think that's because of the credits at the end. Because we watched it on YouTube, and it was only an hour and 20 minutes long. And, it was far more kiddish than The Lost Boys. So I think it's funny how we watched a movie that, that made those critiques stand out even more than with The Lost Boys. Because with The Lost Boys, when I say like that those were critiques, I mean those are very light critiques. Like, obviously I think Lost Boys is a near perfect film in terms of, just a fun 80s horror film. But with this film, I mean this is an 80s film, Safi?
Yep.
I don't think so, Safi. I mean, they needed... First off, let's talk about the witch of this movie. There's villains in this movie. There's a witch, and then there's the Dark Man, Mr. Dark, whatever the F. Who cares? I mean, they don't even have characters. I mean, they're just these walking cardboard cutouts. That's not a comment on her body or anything. I'm talking about the character. But the witch is supposed to be a villain, and she's terrible. She does a terrible job. Pam Grier does an awful job. She's not scary. She doesn't act like a witch at all. I actually think that with this movie in general, Disney just looked for the cheapest actors they could find. Because I know that Pam Grier is popular now, but back in the day, she was in blaxploitation films all the time, like Scream, Blackula Scream, which I love that movie, actually, with her in it. But, she was in those low-quality films, and so that's probably how they got her to be in this film. They got her because she was cheap labor. And same with all the other actors in this movie. The actors who played the kids, terrible. Don't you agree, Safi? I mean, come on. Don't you agree? These people were despicable. They were so bad. They were so, I'm doing a better job giving a performance than they did.
Well, like I said, it was very bland. And I think part of the problem is the story so far, the book. I've been listening to it a lot because I've been doing a lot of listing today, sweaters for reselling. And so I listened to a book on tape, and it's just very bland and very detailed. So the story itself is really boring. Sorry. And so therefore, what's the movie going to be?
What about the acting? I'm talking about the acting.
The whole thing is
No,
just bland.
that's not an excuse.
No, well,
You don't get a pass because the story's boring.
Well, I think that just...
What about Shock? They
reflects.
gave good performances in Shock.
Well,
and it was a boring story.
They must have caught the boring part of it like a sickness. Because there's no depth to their characters. There's no depth to their characters in the book.
Yeah.
And so they would have had to make up something completely different. And like I said, Ray Bradbury wrote part of the screenplay, and Marco just read that Stephen King had actually made a script.
Yeah, Stephen King wrote a rejected screenplay, which is unfortunate because obviously Stephen King's probably would have been a lot better in terms of entertainment value at the very least.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's unfortunate that they screwed over Stephen King. It just seems like another example of a movie studio making everything babyish and
it's very childish.
Yeah.
It's a kid's movie.
Yeah. Oh no, I would call it a baby movie. If you put this on for a kid nowadays, they'd fall asleep.
Yeah, well, they wouldn't care for it.
Or they would start to throw a tantrum because they're so bored.
Yeah, they wouldn't like it.
But as I was saying about the Dust Witch, she was terrible. She was a terrible excuse for a witch. There was nothing witchy about her. And so I really think that if they wanted to cast a better actress, if she had to be a black witch for some reason, which that's another weird thing, is that, usually witches are these pale women who look like Susan Atkins, the killer. Usually witches look like her. And if they had hired a woman who looked like Susan Atkins, that would be the preferable choice, in my opinion. But if she had to be black, then they should have gotten Volnavia from the first Dr. Phibes movie, because she did a better job than Pam Grier did in this movie, and she didn't even have any lines the entire film.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's just sad. Isn't that, Safi?
Yeah.
And so there you go.
And she was exotic, too.
Yeah.
She had beautiful clothes, and she would just do things, and everything about her was like staged, like, a model would for a photo shoot. And then she would just kind of follow through with some actions with her arms and maybe her face and making, gestures, but never having to say a word.
Well, it's too bad that I don't think she's ever done an interview about the film, like, where she talks, like, on set. That would have been really cool to see, like, on set. But, okay.
That's diverging.
Yeah. Well, it's just this movie sucks. I mean, the more we talk about this movie, the more people are going to hate us for not liking it. I mean, there's grown men and grown women who probably give this movie a 10 out of 10.
No, I just don't see that.
I think that's a problem. I mean, it's usually the reason is, sorry, but I'm going to destroy everybody. Usually the reason is because a lot of kids are babied, and they're not allowed to watch horror films. They're not allowed to watch any type of film that's not like babyish, and so they're sheltered. And so what happens is the few kiddie horror films that they do watch, like this one, they carry those closer to their heart when they're adults, because those films give them nostalgia, and it's like, they prefer those films when they're adults too, because they were sheltered so long. And so, but with me, I saw this film as a kid, but I was allowed to watch horror films. But I saw this, I thought it was okay. I saw it again, and I hated it. I thought it was boring, and I never watched it again. So, yeah, there you go. And that just shows, like, when you're not sheltered, and when you actually have a taste of horror, you're not going to like this movie. And if you do, you have some issues. I mean, there's nothing to like about the movie. Even the main villain, Mr. Dark, I mean, he's terrible. He does a terrible job. He's not scary at all.
No, the film isn't scary.
Yeah, the film is not scary.
None of it.
None of it.
You might be afraid of somebody getting hurt with something, like the kids falling out of a tree or something.
You're gonna be afraid
falling
in a Disney film,
but it's not a horror movie at all.
You're gonna
it's
feel
not scary, and even when everybody in the carnival, they walk on this death march. It's like in Louisiana, New Orleans, when somebody dies and they have this funeral march, and everybody's, there's the coffin and the people walking, and they play this real sad song. Well, they did that. And they're looking for the boys because, Mr. Dark probably wants to get rid of Will, and then the other guy, Jim, he wants him to be his right-hand man for some reason.
Wait a second. I missed that part. He wants a kid to be his right-hand man?
Yeah, that's in the movie.
What the
I'm not on that part in the book.
What the fuck?
No, the thing about Jim's wish, Will doesn't have any wish to do anything differently than what he does. But Jim has a wish to become a man right now. He wants to turn into a man, and so, something that happens, but like I said at the beginning, Mr. Dark has the ability to grant people's wishes. And so, that is a wish, and I won't say how.
Why doesn't he grant his own wish?
That he grants Jim's. Well, so anyway, he likes the way Jim thinks, so I guess he thinks that once he makes him into an adult, he'll be his right-hand man. So that's what...
Why doesn't he just grant his own wish?
What are you talking about?
Why doesn't
Jim just wait to grow up and be a man?
No, why doesn't Mr. Darky grant his own wish? Why doesn't he just grant his own wish?
I don't know.
He could grant his own wish.
I don't know.
Mr. Dark. Why does he call Mr. Dark?
I don't know.
Because he wears black clothes?
I don't know.
That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard of. He wants a kid to be his sidekick when he... Oh,
yeah.
See, that's the problem, is that, I couldn't even tell that. I didn't even understand what was going on because I just lost interest.
Well, I watched it. It was the copy that I was watching was very hard to see and hear, which I'm sorry. I know I've been complaining about that in Fargo, but it was just a terrible copy, and it kept jiggling, constant jiggle throughout the movie. And I thought, I'm just going to get through this, and I've seen it before, but I saw it a million years ago, and I knew Mr. Dark was a bad guy, and I knew I didn't know Jason Robards was in the movie. I didn't know who Jonathan Pryce was at that time, and so, but still, it's just jiggly, and it was hard to follow. But I heard that. I haven't even read that in the book yet, so I did get that part.
It was so boring too. It was so boring.
Yeah, it was. I just wanted to get it over.
This movie is more boring than 3-hour-long films that I've seen.
Okay, well, if that's all we're going to say about it,
No, we're not finished yet, Safi, because the father did okay.
Well, he did the best with what he had.
That's the only thing, though. That's the only positive thing
I do want
I
to
can say.
In the book, he's a janitor. He's not a librarian, and I think because of the actor who played the part, he's so distinguished looking and sounding. He always plays a wise person. At least that's what I've seen. Okay, I haven't seen everything he does. That they made him into a librarian.
That's how much I care about this movie.
In the book, he's a janitor, which makes more sense when Mr. Dark says the things he says to him. About reading about other people's lives and never leading one that's as interesting, or you will never go anywhere or do anything as interesting as those people did. He says something like that to him to make him feel bad.
This is the worst film that we have watched so far. It is worse than any of the other films. I hope that now you take back what you said about Road Games and give that movie the respect it deserves.
No.
No? You think that Road Games is boring is more boring than this?
I don't care. I just if it's not that good, I don't think we should go on about it
anymore. Oh my God. No, Road Games was really good, Safi.
Whatever.
It was really good in terms of foreign films. It's a foreign film, Safi. That country doesn't make that many films. This was the highest budget film that came out in the 80s. Road Games was. And so when you compare that movie to this movie, Road Games was PG too. Road Games was a PG movie, and it did more than this movie did. And look at that. Compare that. That's what you gotta consider.
Whatever. I just think we should just move on. If it's no good, why are we going on and on about it?
Well, we're talking about Road Games, and Road Games is really good.
Well, we're on this movie now, though.
Well, I mean, I just hate this movie, so... I mean, I like the title. I think that the title could have been a great movie. If they had actually made, like, an R-rated movie by Stephen King. Because, think about it, it could be like Thinner, in a way. Where
that was a good movie.
Yeah. Thinner's the best Stephen King. But anyway, what's your rating, Safi?
Well, like I said, it was very light. Everything about it. The acting, everything. The action, the story. And truthfully, the book is like light as well. And I'll try to finish it out, although... and I can do that because I have so much to do, but... I've been making homemade mashed potatoes for years and years and years, decades, okay? And what's mashed potatoes? You get a russet potato, if you make that kind, and you peel it and chop it, you boil it for just a certain amount of time, you mash it with butter and salt, and if you want a little bit of milk, although you got to be careful, you might make it soggy. So that gives it really good flavor. So they're really good mashed potatoes. And so I gave it a plain potatoes, mashed up, but no salt, no butter, no milk, no nothing, just plain old potatoes. And when I was in Tanzania, East Africa, I lived with a family. We had something exactly the same, only it was mashed plantains. They boiled the plantains, they mashed them up, and it was called bitoke, and it was an ethnic dish that they could eat for lunch and dinner. It was something you eat all the time. It's like rice. People in Latin America, Asia, everything, they eat rice a lot. So anyway, they just had, where we lived, the mother, she just made these plain mashed bitoke, and it was so plain and so untasteful because she didn't add, you could add beans, you could add meat, you could add vegetables. She didn't do any of that. And, it could be they just didn't have the money to get those things. But anyway, it's just like plain mashed potatoes. It was so gross. It was so bad, I started to gag when I would eat it. That's how bad it was.
Did you gag when watching this movie?
No, but I'm like, I have to watch this. When you watch these movies, you're taking your valuable time. And my time is valuable. I have a million other things to do. This isn't the only thing I do. And I watched the whole thing every minute. I tried anyway, even though it was jiggly and it was hard to see, dark and hard to hear. But I watched it, and I don't like that. But anyway, I did it, and I told you what I thought, and that's that.
Want to know what my rating is?
Yeah, what is it? I can't wait to hear.
I already told you last night. God, Safi.
Well, when I was tired, I'd gotten up at 3
God,
o'clock, 3:30 the day before.
Okay, I rated this film. This is also my least favorite trick or treat candy.
Oh.
I used to get this a lot. I would have a lot of great candy, but then I would always end up having a ton of double bubble gum. And babyish, kiddish food. It's not candy.
Not good for your teeth.
It's not good for trick or treat. I mean, it's not candy. And a lot of the time, the double bubble that they would give me would be stale, and so it would be hard, and you couldn't even chew it. And
just throw it in the trash.
Yeah, throw it away like this film. I would throw this film away and remake it, make it rated R.
Yeah, this would be a good movie to remake.
I don't know though. The concept is kind of trash too.
They'd have to change the story.
It's kind of a story. It's a story that's been done. I mean, an evil character grants a good character a wish. The wish comes with bad things. The character has to overcome that. And it's been told a million times. I mean, like The Devil and Daniel Webster.
I don't think a lot of people have heard about that movie, and I think they'd really like that. That's something we could review.
Yeah, but we've seen it, and so I'm saying it's the exact same type of story. And so it exists. But Double Bubble is just the worst. I mean, when you chew it, it loses its flavor in about 5 minutes. And then it turns into this, like, paper consistency where it literally tastes like you're chewing on tissue paper. And, then you have to worry about swallowing it. Then you have to worry about throwing it away. Uh-oh, did I keep the wrapper? Did I throw the wrapper away? I have to get up and go spit it out in the trash. Oh, I have to, I got stuff all over my hands now. I have to go wash my hands. It's just the worst Halloween candy. It should never be given to people in trick or treat. And I think it's a crime for people who give that to kids. And that's what this movie is. It's light. It's babyish. It lacks depth. It lacks flavor. It's just the worst. And it's small and tiny. And, it's just terrible. I hated this movie.
Okay. Well.
So, what should people do, Safi?
Well, everybody, I'd like for you to like and subscribe. That would really be nice. Or if you want to dislike it too, go ahead. And if you want to make comments, either one of us will get back and write back. And next movie that we are going to review that's related to Halloween is
The Craft.
And we'll be doing that as soon as we can. And
the original, The Craft, not that shitty sequel that just came out, is coming out this month. PG-13 trash!
Oh boy. Anyway, I don't know anything about that, but we're going to be watching and reviewing The Craft. And guess what tonight is?
Fargo!
And of course, I probably will be up at 3 o'clock watching the show, and you'll be getting our review of it in the next 2 days.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody?
Goodbye.
Bye.